Hello, my name is Suzanne van Doorn. I'm the founder of Mindfunda.com, a daily blog about spirituality, mythology, and psychology. All the things to make your life a little easier and a little better. Don't forget to visit mindfunda.com and sign up for my email newsletter so you will get my messages each month with the best mindfundas. And you can also download my free ebook about mutual dreaming. If you have any questions about meeting another person in your dreams, this is the book for you. Don't forget to sign up for my YouTube channel because I'll be uploading lots of interesting videos. And today I'm going to talk with a lady called Catherine Wikholm, and she has dove into the question about the sense of self and about can we change. And I remember being at university, I was taught about there's a theory X and there's a theory Y, and theory X says people are very lazy and they have to be manipulated to do things, and there is a theory Y that people are self motivated, they have an inner motivation, and I was, oh yeah, I believe in theory Y, yes, yes, yes. But having being at the earth a couple of years, I've kind of stuck in the middle. I think sometimes it's theory X, sometimes it's theory Y. And together, I'm meeting Catherine Wikholm today in the middle with me. Hello, Catherine. Hi.
Hi,
Would you be so kind to introduce yourself?
sure. So I'm the co-author of The Buddha Pill, Can Meditation Change You, which I wrote with Miguel Furias. And that just came out in May of this year. I'm also sort of finishing my doctoral training in clinical psychology at the moment. And before I started my training, I worked with Miguel on a randomized controlled trial looking at the psychological effects of yoga and meditation with prisoners. So I work in sort of NHS mental health services at the moment, but my background is more in working with prisons. So yeah.
How did you meet Miguel Farias?
How did we meet?
Yeah, how did the book came about?
How did the book come about? And so I met Miguel when we were working together as part of a research team at Oxford University on a randomized controlled trial. So we were looking at the psychological effects of yoga and meditation with prisoners. And this involved 7 British prisons where the prisoners were doing 10 weeks of yoga and meditation. And we were doing sort of pre and post measures and looking at the effects that this could have on them. And it was sort of through the process of doing the research that Miguel and I first started thinking about writing a book about it, because the research itself was really interesting. It was really new, it hadn't been done in this way before. But also the background of the charity that provided the yoga and meditation intervention was really interesting. So they've been sort of running these classes in 25 years, and they had ideas around sort of could a prison cell be used as an ashram? Is there something about doing yoga and meditation in these kind of closed conditions that could be sort of a catalyst for spiritual transformation? And the idea for the book sort of came out of the prison study and the sort of background of this charity. And sort of as we started writing it, our interest broadened out, and it kind of moved away from just, I guess, a prison focus, and we became more interested in the potential of these practices to bring about meaningful personal change in us all. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember, just like you, in the 70s, that yoga was transcendental meditation was brought like a Buddha pill, really. You take it, you do it, you start floating up in the sky, you become peaceful. And well, just like your book says, it was the Buddha pill that would make everything better. So meditation was the key to happiness, and I was so thrilled to read in your book about a very, very exciting research that was done, a meditation by 4,000 people, the number of people meditating at the same moment in Washington, D.C. grew each day, and intuitively I still feel, even though I have a research background just like you, how more people who are focusing good intention at the earth will bring about change. And your book tells us about that research. Could you tell us something about it?
Yeah. So you're talking about the Washington DC study. Yeah. In 1993. The TM movement. There was this idea that meditators could kind of emanate this sense of kind of love and peacefulness that could permeate other people. So they had this idea that it could even sort of reduce violent crime. So were meditating kind of stress within the collective consciousness, and this would reduce things like homicides and robberies and rapes,
violence.
Yeah. So it was quite an amazing study. It cost something like over $4 million. So a hugely expensive and
very ambitious,
quite improbable. Yeah. So TM, they had this theory and they put it to the test. They analysed the results and they did actually publish it. So I think it was published around 6 years later. So they didn't have like a control group, but they kind of did it in 3 stages. So they had like 1,000 people together, and they were setting up to 4,000. And the idea was that, you know, if this were sort of, if it worked, then the more people meditating, the greater the effect would be. And I think it was shown that sort of in the final week of the study, there was the sort of greatest decrease in violent crime. Now, I think it was something like over the course of the study, around sort of a 15% decrease in crime rates, which kind of would suggest that it worked. Yeah. But so, you know, when sort of Miguel took a closer look at sort of what had actually happened and like police thought, what we noticed is that although things like sort of certain types of violent crime decreased, interestingly, the number of homicides didn't. Now, in part, this was due to, I think it was an incident about 2 weeks into the study where a gunman kind of fired at children in a swimming pool, and around about 10 people died within a day. Now, in the kind of analysis of the results, they had taken this out of the data set, saying that it was an outlier. So sort of an outlier would be if you've got a data set and someone scores sort of very high or very low compared with other participants, you might, or it used to be sort of past practice, to kind of take that out of the data set because it can influence the overall analysis. But we think there's something very different from kind of removing a questionnaire score to deleting the data of 10 people who were murdered from a data set. So when you kind of, I guess, don't take that out, actually the number of homicides didn't decrease. Now, if TM did have this effect kind of on the collective consciousness that kind of lowered violent crime, we kind of expect it down. So an interesting study, but perhaps one that didn't quite show the results that they were hoping for.
Yeah. I was really impressed because that you have found that out, that the results were manipulated.
Well,
and I really like the fact that the book takes us through the scientific steps of really doing a good research, to have a control group and to have a very clear variable that you are manipulating to see if there are changes in group A and group B. So that was really what I liked about the book. And from my own education as a psychologist, I remember clearly the nature versus nurture debate. As being raised as a psychologist, we had to, as students in our first year, debate about, do people get born a certain way, or does culture, the environment they grow up in, change them? And we had the rubber band theory, and that's about 30 years ago that I was in college. And it says, well, you have the genes, and you can scratch the abilities that you are born with like a rubber band theory. Um, what is your research you describe in the Buddha pill? How has it changed your own thoughts about the nature-nurture debate?
Well, obviously, in the book, we have a chapter sort of on Set Like Faster, which talks about personality traits and the fact that as we get older, we find that some of these personality traits seem to be kind of more set. So the idea is sort of that perhaps as we approach, our late 20s or 30s, we have a kind of sense that we might sort of continue to be the kind of person that we are. But go back to the nature-nurture idea, I guess personally, I strongly do not believe that people are born bad. I think environment has a huge role to play in shaping us and the experiences that we have. So when I worked with young offenders, it just became, just excruciatingly sort of clear to me that the role, the impact that upbringing has on who we are as people and the things that we do. So with some of the young offenders that I work with, I think it would have been a miracle had they not ended up in prison, given the early life experiences that they had. I think as a psychologist as well, it's very important to me to believe in the potential of change, that people can change. But having said that, change is really difficult, and it's difficult, whatever age we are. It's really hard. It can often be a long process, and whether we're doing it, with the help of a friend, with the help of a therapist, with the help of a meditation teacher, I do think that it is easier with a helping hand. And it's interesting, I guess, through the process of writing the book, thinking about the different ways in which people can change.
Catherine, people do not like loss. I know we are wired that way, being Homo sapiens. And at my university in Tilburg, there was a guy who studied anticipated loss, which is a great way to sell things, because we have a commercial in the Netherlands for a lottery, and they say, you don't want your neighbor to win $1 million while you are not winning $1 million. So it's very, very innate for us to despise loss and to do everything to avoid it. And meditation can help you with those kind of feelings. But there is a great metaphor in the Buddha pill, and it's called the red balloon. The red balloon metaphor. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I think where we talk about that in the book, we were discussing a randomized controlled trial by Mark Williams and his team. And it was a study where they were trying to find out what the active ingredient of mindfulness-based cognitive therapy is. So, i.e., is it the mindfulness meditation? So they did a trial where they compared MBCT to cognitive psychoeducation. So effectively MBCT without the mindfulness meditation, and then compared to treatment as usual. And what they actually found was that there was no kind of effect on reducing relapse rates for depression between the groups. So it made no difference really if you did mindfulness-based cognitive therapy or if you just went to see your GP every couple of weeks as usual, unless you had a history of childhood trauma and abuse. So mindfulness seemed to work better for people that had a history of those problems. So they kind of, in the paper, they offered kind of an explanation as to why this would be. So they said something like there were aspects of mindfulness-based cognitive therapy that seemed to kind of match the needs of these patients. So things around acceptance and so on. And they also said that it may be that mindfulness enables people to sort of remain in contact with sort of that emotional experience rather than avoiding it or engaging in rumination about it. Now, I guess we kind of queried that, and sort of connecting you to the emotions about sort of trauma that you've experienced may actually enable kind of a way to kind of bypass those experiences. And that's where we use the red balloon metaphor. So the Red Balloon is a French film from the 1950s in Paris. And it's about a little boy who is bullied by his peers, he's mistreated by adults, he doesn't have any friends. And then one day he finds this red balloon and the balloon becomes his friend. But other children want his balloon and they sort of steal it and fight him for it, and the balloon pops, so the balloon friend dies. And in the film, sort of all around Paris, other balloons leave their owners and they come to the little boy to comfort him. And the final scenes of the film show the little boy kind of floating up into the air with the balloons, kind of escaping from all the people that mistreated him. So I guess the idea of the red balloon metaphor is kind of that perhaps mindfulness, rather than putting us in touch with trauma-related emotions or difficult experience, might enable a way of kind of bypassing it, so bypassing that difficult experience. Now, it's not to say that that wouldn't, on some level, be helpful. Kind of being able to avoid difficult feelings might be short-term, but we also know that avoidant behaviours are a kind of a key issue within, say, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and that although avoidance helps in the short term, it's not necessarily helpful at all in the long term.
Okay, thank you about explaining the red balloon metaphor. Meditation or yoga as mediator of change seems like a natural lubricant, if you don't mind me using that word, to facilitate change. But the Buddha pill also alerts us to the dark side of meditation. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. So we have a chapter in the book called The Dark Side of Meditation. And as you're probably aware, this has been the chapter that I guess has sort of the most media interest. So we had an article out in New Scientist around the time that the book was published that focused on this chapter. And in the sort of newspapers here in the UK, quite a few of them have talked about this chapter, because I guess it's something that people have known about, sort of people that, meditation teachers, that or negative effects of meditation, but it really isn't talked about. So the idea, or kind of the view that we're presented with in the media, we feel is quite skewed in terms of it's all about benefit. It's meditation or mindfulness is a cure-all and for all. And in the dark side, we look at the potential for not only positive effects, but also for unexpected effects. There was a study by Shapiro that found that of people going on meditation retreats, the majority, I think it was around 63%, will experience at least one negative effect. And for about 7%, they're going to experience significant negative effects. So this could include things like panic, depression, dissociation, increase in negativity. There's also case study evidence of people experiencing psychotic episodes. And since the book's come out, we've had an increasing number of emails from people who have had negative experiences, not only from retreats, but also from doing mindfulness. Now, I should emphasize, it's not that everyone is having these strongly negative experiences, but I guess we wanted to kind of bring into, sort of raise the discussion, the fact that this is happening. And some of the people that have contacted us felt very alone with their experience. They may blame themselves for doing it wrong. They thought that it was something wrong with them. And actually, perhaps this isn't something that we should be that surprised about, the potential for difficult experience, because meditation was never designed to make us happier. It wasn't be the smooth ride that we're often told, in the media that it would be. And in the Dark Side chapter, we also talk about sort of historical evidence for instance, the association of meditation with violence. We talk about that a little in the book. The idea that it's been used in the past to sort of help soldiers to be better soldiers.
Oh, yeah.
So we discuss a whole range of things which sort of might surprise some people if the view they have meditation is, meditation will only make you feel happier, less stressed, more productive at work, and so on. What we weren't trying to do is to denigrate meditation or to scaremonger or to put people off doing it. What we were trying to do is to present sort of the full range of experiences that can happen through meditation.
Yeah, to give a balanced view on the process. Yeah, because not every kind of personality is equipped to deal with the loss of ego boundaries. Like meditation facilitates, in my eyes.
And it's not to say that, a difficult experience is necessarily a bad one. It can be really important, I think, for certain emotions and experiences to come up for you and to work through them. I guess the thing is that not everyone would necessarily be expecting that to happen or be ready to deal with it at that particular time. So they might not have the support in place to be able to deal with these things. And I guess, we would encourage just more open discussion about this. I know that often meditation teachers do talk about this, the potential for difficult experience. And I think that is really positive, so that people are prepared.
Yeah. But I too am like you say in the book, or Miguel says, meditation addict, because you meditate and you take time off to engage in your inner thoughts, and you get hooked on it. Yeah, it's like, yeah. And no matter what comes up, you say, I've taken this time for myself. Really, I feel better. That's the kind of association I have with meditation. It's like running. You get an kind of meditation high, and the book also tells about that. Not in the chapter about the dark side, though.
No,
But I wanted to mention that. I could refer to it. Yeah. The Buddha pill asks if the road to change can be walked by sitting in silence repeating a mantra. Should change not be about movement and action? Yoga seems like a very nice alternative because it uses the body and leaves an imprint on the body, and the body is such an important organ to give its wisdom to us. What are your own experiences with yoga?
My experiences with yoga, I guess, have been quite varied. I think, and we talk about this in the book, the importance of finding a really good teacher. So perhaps a teacher whose approach to yoga, to life, is a good fit with yours. I practice with yoga. So one of the ones that's mentioned in the book is when I did yoga in an underwater room in Las Vegas, surrounded by dolphins. So I've had some sort of wacky experiences with yoga. I've had some really cool yoga. I once did a yoga class at sunrise in Hana in Maui, which is probably the most beautiful place I've ever been to. And of my whole trip there, that yoga class is probably one of my favourite memories. So, but then again, I've had other experiences with yoga, like in the gym, which haven't been quite so memorable. As well as kind of my own personal experience, I think I've found it experience students who took part in our study and the variation of their experiences, even within prisoners who were doing the same class. So some finding it not so helpful, others finding it, almost transformative, sort of really, really important as being the best thing that they had done in years for their well-being. And I've also really been interested in talking to yoga teachers about their experiences. So in the book, we interviewed a woman called Pollyanna, who teaches at Wormwood Scrubs, which is big prisons here in London. And of yoga, what might not be considered, the ideal circumstances in which to teach.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but you're not on now, and you're good. So you were talking about oh God, what were you talking about? About your experience in the research you did about yoga.
Yes, so I was interviewing prisoners, and so obviously once we did this sort of 10-week yoga intervention and came back to the prisons, a lot of the prisoners spoke about how they found the yoga classes, and I was kind of struck by the variation. So some prisoners, enjoyed it, others, some didn't enjoy it, didn't find much benefit, and others absolutely loved it and thought it was the best thing. It really seemed to have this transformative effect. One of my favourite stories within the book is of Nick Brewer. So he was the ex-drug smuggler who became a yoga instructor on release, and he's great. And it was so nice that he was willing to share his story with us, because I think it's a really powerful example of the potential of yoga to bring about really meaningful personal change. And I was saying I really enjoyed as well speaking to yoga instructors about their experience of teaching it, and meeting Pollyanna, so one of the yoga instructors you described, and what that's like to kind of teach yoga in those conditions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's such a gutsy thing to do, to go to a prison and to interview all those inmates about yoga and teaching. Yeah, I was very impressed that being a lady and going into a prison, I don't think I would have volunteered for it, but you did.
Prisons are interesting places to work. I think you just have to make sure you are very boundaried and you're very professional. So. The same as with anywhere, really.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things I like about Buddha pill is that you say in the book, experience is very much like an autobiography. The story you tell yourself is not exactly what happened. How you understand your life experiences changes over time. I think that's very wise, because the way I look back at my childhood now is completely different than when I was a child or a teenager. Immediately, I thought about how dreams are the same. You tell yourself a story about what you dreamed when you wake up. Have dreams guided you in your life or while writing this book?
So if you're thinking of the particular dream that we talk about, I think in chapter 4, that's Miguel's. So I can't claim that particular dream was mine. I'm interested in dreams. I can't claim that a big part of my clinical training has really focused on it, but I think dream interpretation is interesting. I certainly dream quite vividly. I can't say that I've been guided as such by them. My undergraduate degree is in philosophy, so I read philosophy at Oxford, and I think one of the first essays I ever wrote was on our dreams experiences we have when we're asleep. And there is...
Well, you gave an answer about dreams. That you are a vivid dreamer and dreams have not guided you through the books. So, well, it would have been great if you had told a magnificent dream, but unfortunately.
Although I think Miguel's dream in the book is a great one.
Yeah.
And really interesting. And I am interested, I guess, when I'm in terms of sort of thinking about psychodynamic therapy and sort of the way that sort of dreams would come into that and be something that you talk about in therapy within sort of that school of psychology. Really interesting. Something that I'd definitely like to know more about.
Yeah, and like visualization and dreaming, they are the same process in the brain. So I thought that perhaps you had taken an interest in it. I think the research you did into the effects of meditation and yoga in several prisons in England reaches some very important conclusions, 7 myths about meditation and effects. Can you tell us about that? Myth 1. Meditation produces a unique state of consciousness that we can measure scientifically is the first myth.
Yeah, so just to clarify, the 7 myths are not sort of based on the back of our one sort of yoga study. They're more sort of the way that we included the book. So we kind of put the 7 myths in as a way of kind of summarising everything we covered through the 7 chapters of the book, and we kind of, I guess, juxtapose sort of the myths with the scientific evidence. So yeah. So the first one, sorry, say that to me again.
Meditation produces a unique state of consciousness that we can measure scientifically.
Yeah, so we talked around the fact that it does produce changes in consciousness. I know the example Miguel often likes to use is that if you jog for 8 weeks, we're also going to see changes in the brain. More research we need to make. Conclusion we kind of come to with a lot of the myths. So I might end up repeating myself with this, is there is a big need for further research. There's a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah. Of course, and it was what Mahatma Yogi tried to prove scientifically, but after research of to writers not so scientifically, that it does not exactly produce a unique state of consciousness. And well, that's a bit of a pity, but it is still a very important technique to be used. The second myth is if everybody meditated, the world would be a much better place. And I like the fact that I so often see it on Facebook, like something that the Dalai Lama said, and maybe he did say that. But it isn't completely true, is it?
So if children, the quote around, it's, I guess it's like kind of going back to kind of the Washington DC study. They weren't quite the findings found that they perhaps thought it would be, and also it's common within all religious traditions to say that everyone followed our teaching to meditation for thinking sort of Buddhist tradition or Hindu. It's also, I guess, there's the interesting historical stuff around the linking of meditation with the making better soldiers and stuff. I think meditation can amplify what's already there.
Yeah. And myth number 3 is if you're seeking personal change and growth, meditation is as or more efficient than having therapy.
Yeah, so we discussed this. I think one of the things we talk about is that when you're meditating, this could be something that you're doing on your own. Whereas when you have a therapist there, you might have that kind of other perspective. Now, that could be thought of as the biased observer, but it could also be that that's really what we need in terms of sort of someone to help challenge our thesis. Also be necessary support there. I think things are going to work differently for different people, and this is a major message within the book, is that just as I wouldn't say meditation for all, I also wouldn't say therapy for all. I think it's about finding out what works for you, and I guess we'd encourage kind of avoiding this prescriptive thing of everyone should meditate and everyone's going to get exactly the same effects, because it just doesn't seem to work like that.
Yeah, and that's myth number 4, that meditation can benefit everyone. And you just told us it isn't so, because you have to individualize it. You have to know, well, that attracts me, that method, visualization, therapy, meditation, yoga. So go out and do that and see if it's if it benefits you.
Yeah.
Would you like to say something about it?
Yeah, it's just simply that I guess we'd encourage that kind of trying things out, because how are you going to know unless you try? But going into it, I guess, kind of prepared. So knowing that although there is a likelihood that for many people they're going to experience positive effects, there is also the chance that you may not derive benefit, and there's also the chance that you may have difficult experiences. So I think, when people are thinking about trying out meditation or mindfulness, just to reflect on where you're at in your life at the moment, and to think about what you're really hoping to get from the experience as well.
Yeah. And the fifth myth is meditation has no adverse or negative effects. It will change you for the better and only for the better. We already talked about that in the dark side of the meditation. Myth number 6 is science has unequivocally shown how meditation can change us and why.
So again, there's still a need for further research. Like I talked about earlier, the Mark Williams study that tried to find sort of what the active ingredient of mindfulness-based cognitive therapy was, it didn't show that it was the mindfulness meditation. There is a need for more and for better research. There's still a lot of questions that need to be answered. And I guess, at the moment, there's a lot of evidence for benefit, but the evidence isn't conclusive or consistent. There's definitely a need for more.
Yeah. And I really, really liked your own study about those weeks of yoga that the prisoners did and how that brought about a really positive change. I was really impressed with that. So, we're at the last myth number 7. We can practice meditation as a purely scientific technique with no religious or spiritual learnings.
Sure. So I guess, within sort of modern mindfulness, it's kind of marketed as a secular technique, so kind of devoid of any kind of but it does have its roots in Buddhism. Now, whether we can fully sort of strip that away and have it as something entirely secular is debatable. There's a study that we talk about in the book that shows that an effect meditation is an increase in spirituality, and that in part, may be responsible for some of its benefits. So I don't know. I mean, personally, I'm not sure it can be something entirely different, but it also, I guess, is very different to kind of, the mindfulness we have now is very different to how it is when it's contextualized within sort of Buddhist tradition. So, yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if it isn't entirely secular.
Okay. Well, thank you for talking about your book with me. I was very impressed. I really like this different edge that it gives on meditation to put it into a scientific perspective. It really makes you think, somebody should have done it years before. Is there a question I haven't asked you or something that you really would like to say?
I think we've probably covered it, but I guess nice part of the interest on the book has focused very much on the dark side of meditation chapter. And I guess with that, there is a danger that Miguel and I kind of get portrayed as being very anti-meditation, when we actually wrote the book. Initially, the dark side chapter wasn't even on the radar. It was going to be very much a book about the benefits of meditation. We were really inspired by our own prison research.
Yeah.
And it was just in the process of going really sort of getting into the body of research literature that exists, the last sort of 45 years worth of research, and really immersing ourselves in it and interviewing people and finding out more and more, that we kind of discovered that this kind of in discussing that, we're just trying to, as you said earlier, give a balanced view and just to try and, I guess, encourage some sensible discussion around the topic. We've had quite a lot of emails from people who have come across articles about the dark side and thought, oh, the Buddha pill, this is some very anti-meditation book. But when they've read the whole thing, have said, actually, this does give a really balanced view. So yeah, I would encourage people to read the whole book and have that connect rather than just as a kind of an isolated thing.
Yeah, and I have to agree. I really enjoyed reading the Buddha Pill, and I really, really was impressed by the research that you two have done, and about giving this way of meditative yoga to prisoners, and really with a control group and a research group, seeing if they would really you tested if they would prolong their reaction to a certain stimuli. So if they could inhibit behavior. And I think it was an impressive way of really researching how effective a treatment can be. I really thought it was a really clever way to research it. So really, I agree with Catherine. Go out, buy the book, read it, and you'll be much more informed about meditation, even when you are, just like me, a meditation addict. I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed talking to you, Catherine. Thank you.